In the far reaches of the Andrax Nebula, where even the boldest travelers hesitated to venture, a signal was picked up by the Stellar Nomad, a human exploration vessel. It was faint, barely distinguishable from the static hum of space. Captain Ryan Carter, a man known for his insatiable curiosity and refusal to back down from danger, sat in the dimly lit command center, analyzing the mysterious transmission. "Captain, it's just a distress signal," grumbled Lieutenant Kara Voss, the ship's navigator. "Probably another derelict ship. Could be pirates. Could be worse." Ryan leaned back in his chair, a smirk tugging at his lips. "That's exactly what makes it interesting, Kara. You don't find stories sitting around in safe zones." The ship's AI, Artemis, chimed in with a calm but firm voice. "Captain, the signal's origin is approximately 3.6 light-years away. Preliminary scans indicate no signs of activity nearby. However, the vessel appears to have sustained severe structural damage." "What kind of vessel?" Ryan asked, sitting up straight. "Unknown," replied Artemis. "Design does not match any known species registry. Additionally, there are anomalous energy readings coming from within the ship." That got everyone's attention. Ryan's crew exchanged uneasy glances. Anomalous energy readings were often code for one thing: danger. But for Ryan, it was a call to action. As the Stellar Nomad approached the coordinates, the damaged ship came into view. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its hull shimmered faintly, as if made from a living material, constantly shifting between hues of deep blue and silver. Jagged scars ran along its surface, suggesting it had been in a violent conflict. Yet, despite its damage, it exuded an eerie beauty that made it hard to look away. "Captain," Kara whispered, "I've seen a lot of ships in my time, but this is something else." "Something ancient," added Chief Engineer Malik, staring at the screen. "The design is organic. Almost like it was grown, not built." Ryan felt a chill crawl up his spine, but he pushed it aside. "Prepare to dock. We're going aboard." The crew erupted into protests. "Are you serious?" Kara snapped. "We don't even know if it's safe. What if it's some kind of trap?" Ryan met her gaze calmly. "And what if someone's still alive in there? What if this ship has answers we've been looking for? That's why we're out here, remember? To discover." Reluctantly, the crew followed his orders. The Stellar Nomad extended its docking arms, and with a soft clang, the two ships connected. The airlock hissed as the atmosphere equalized, and Ryan led the boarding party inside. The interior of the alien ship was a haunting mix of beauty and desolation. Walls pulsed faintly with a silvery glow, as though the ship itself were alive. Strange symbols adorned every surface, their meaning lost to time. The air was cold and carried an unexplainable heaviness, as if the ship mourned its own ruin. Then they found her. In the center of what appeared to be the ship's command chamber, a pod made of translucent crystal held a figure inside. It was a woman, or something resembling one. Her features were delicate yet otherworldly, with skin that glowed faintly like molten silver. Long, silken hair floated around her as if she were submerged in water. The crew froze in place, staring at her in awe and terror. "Is she alive?" Malik whispered, his voice barely audible. Ryan stepped closer to the pod, ignoring the unease prickling at the back of his neck. He could hear faint whispers now, like voices carried on a distant wind. Were they real, or was his mind playing tricks on him? He placed a hand on the pod's surface. It was warm. Suddenly, the woman's eyes snapped open. They were a brilliant, piercing silver, brighter than anything Ryan had ever seen. For a moment, no one moved. No one even breathed. The ship's systems surged to life, lights flickering violently. The whispers grew louder, echoing through the chamber. Ryan's heart pounded in his chest, but he stood his ground, meeting the woman's unblinking gaze. Then, she spoke. Her voice was soft yet carried an undeniable power. You are not afraid? Ryan swallowed hard, forcing a grin. Not yet. Should I be? The whispers stopped. The lights dimmed, leaving only the glow of her eyes. She tilted her head slightly, studying him as though he were the most curious thing she'd ever seen. Then she said, almost amused, you may be the first. The chamber fell silent again, except for the faint hum of the ship. Ryan turned to his crew, their faces pale with fear. He looked back at the alien woman and made his decision. Let's get her out of there, he said. Captain, are you out of your mind? Kara hissed. This is exactly how horror stories start. Maybe, Ryan replied, his voice calm but firm. Or maybe this is the start of something incredible. As they worked to free the mysterious woman, none of them noticed the shadows in the corner of the room shifting unnaturally. And none of them could have imagined the events they had just set in motion. First contact. The alien woman lay unconscious on the medbay table of the stellar nomad. Her silvery skin glimmered under the soft light, and her body was eerily still, too still. No rise and fall of breath. No pulse. Yet the medical scanners couldn't declare her dead either. She existed in a strange state of suspended animation, leaving the crew baffled and on edge. Captain, I don't think this was a good idea, Kara said, pacing near the door. We don't know what she is, what she's capable of, or why the galaxy is terrified of her. What if the warnings were right? Ryan stood by the table, studying the alien woman's face. There was something serene about her, something almost peaceful. And what if the warnings were wrong? Fear and truth don't always walk hand in hand. Before Kara could argue, the ship's AI, Artemis, interrupted. Captain, her vitals are spiking. Unusual energy readings detected. The alien woman's veins began to glow faintly, tracing intricate patterns across her body. The air in the medbay grew heavy, making it harder to breathe. Machines around them started to flicker and glitch, their screens displaying strings of symbols the crew couldn't recognize. Then, as suddenly as it started, the glow faded, and silence fell. Ryan leaned closer, whispering under his breath, "What are you?" Her eyes snapped open. The glow from her eyes illuminated the room in a silvery hue. The crew recoiled, but Ryan stood his ground, meeting her piercing gaze. For a moment, the two of them stared at each other, and Ryan felt an inexplicable pull, as though she were looking straight into his soul. The alien woman sat up slowly, her movements graceful but deliberate. Her head tilted slightly, her expression unreadable. Then, she spoke in a voice that was both soft and otherworldly. "You are not, like them." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Them? Who do you mean?" She looked around the room, her eyes briefly landing on each crew member before returning to Ryan. "The others. The ones who fear me. The ones who wish to see me destroyed." "Destroyed?" Kara blurted out. "Why would anyone want to destroy you?" The woman's gaze flickered to Kara, and for a moment, the lieutenant froze, her fear evident. "Because they do not understand. And what they do not understand, they destroy." Ryan stepped between them, drawing the alien woman's attention back to him. "My name is Ryan Carter. I'm the captain of this ship. We found you on a damaged vessel. Can you tell us who you are and what happened?" She regarded him silently for a moment before replying. "I am Asera. The last of the Nyxarian race." The name sent a ripple of unease through the crew. The Nyxarians, the stuff of legends and nightmares. A race said to wield unimaginable power, capable of controlling energy, minds, and even the fabric of reality. They were thought to be long extinct, wiped out by a coalition of species who had deemed them too dangerous to exist. "Nyxarian," Malik whispered. "That's impossible. They're gone. They've been gone for centuries." Asera turned to him, her expression calm but her eyes cold. Not all. Not yet. Before Malik could respond, the lights flickered again, and a strange hum filled the room. Asera looked up, her expression sharpening. They have found us. Who? Ryan asked, his voice tense. The ones who fear me, Asera replied. They are coming. As the crew scrambled to make sense of her words, Artemis chimed in with an urgent alert. Captain, an unidentified fleet has entered our sector. They are heavily armed and on an intercept course. Battle stations. Ryan barked. The crew sprang into action, but he remained focused on Asera. If you know who's coming, you'd better start talking. Are they here for you? Asera met his gaze, her voice steady but laced with sorrow. Yes. They will not stop until I am destroyed. And they will destroy anyone who stands with me. Ryan's jaw tightened, but he refused to back down. Well, they're going to have to go through us first. Asera's eyes softened for the first time, a hint of surprise flickering across her face. You would stand with me? Even knowing what I am? Ryan grinned. You don't scare me, Asera. Monsters don't ask for mercy. A faint smile tugged at her lips, but it vanished just as quickly. Then you are either very brave, or very foolish. The ship's alarm blared, cutting their conversation short. Artemis announced, enemy fleet will engage in 60 seconds. Ryan grabbed his communicator. All hands, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Malik, get the shields up. Kara, plot an escape route. As the crew raced against the clock, Ryan turned to Asera. If you've got anything up your sleeve, now's the time to share it. Her gaze grew distant, as if she were remembering something painful. There is much I can do, but I am afraid of what I might unleash. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder, surprising both her and himself. Whatever you're afraid of, we'll face it together. But right now, I need you to trust me. Asera hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Very well. But know this, once I begin, there will be no turning back. The hum in the air grew louder as the enemy fleet closed in, and Asera stood, her glowing veins pulsing brighter with each passing second. The crew braced themselves, unsure of what was about to happen, but one thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same again. The dark reputation. The stellar nomad rocked violently as the enemy fleet fired their opening salvo. Explosions rippled across the ship's hull, and alarms blared throughout the corridors. Ryan gripped the edge of the console to steady himself, shouting over the chaos. Shields holding at 40%. Malik yelled from the engineering station. We can't take much more of this. Kara's voice cut through the noise. Captain, we're surrounded. There's no way out unless we go through them. Ryan clenched his jaw, his mind racing for a solution. Asera, he shouted, turning to the alien woman standing silently in the middle of the command deck. If you've got some kind of trick, now's the time to use it. Asera's glowing veins pulsed faintly, and her silver eyes flickered with hesitation. You do not understand the cost of my power. Once unleashed, it cannot be contained. Ryan stepped closer, his voice firm but calm. Right now, the cost of doing nothing is all of our lives. You said they fear you, show me why. Asera's gaze met his, and for a moment, the bridge fell silent, as if the chaos outside had paused in deference to the gravity of her decision. She closed her eyes, and the air around her seemed to ripple. A low hum filled the room, and the glow of her veins intensified, spreading across her entire body. Before anyone could react, Asera raised a hand. The ship shuddered, but this time it wasn't from enemy fire. Outside, the stars themselves seemed to dim, and an invisible force rippled outward from the stellar nomad, slamming into the enemy fleet. Ships were hurled back as if struck by a tidal wave. Several vessels spun out of control, their engines sparking and failing. On the bridge, the crew stared in stunned silence as the screens displayed the aftermath. Asera's power had created a momentary reprieve, but the strain was visible on her face. She swayed slightly, and Ryan caught her arm before she collapsed. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "It is done, for now." Malik's voice broke the silence. "Captain, we've got bigger problems. We're receiving a broadcast, and it's not good." Ryan turned to the main display as a hologram flickered to life. A tall alien with dark, chitinous armor and cold, calculating eyes appeared. His voice was low and venomous, dripping with disdain. "Humans. Your ignorance is astounding. Do you even know what you've brought aboard your ship?" Ryan crossed his arms, his expression defiant. "I know she's a person. And I know you attacked us without warning." The alien sneered. "That person is Asera of the Nyxarian race. A creature whose kind once enslaved entire star systems and destroyed civilizations. We wiped them out to protect the galaxy from their tyranny, and yet you choose to harbor the last of their kind." Ryan glanced at Asera, who remained silent, her expression unreadable. "If that's true, then why go to such lengths to erase her? What are you so afraid of?" The alien's eyes narrowed. "It is not fear. It is justice." The hologram flickered off, and Kara turned to Ryan, her voice trembling. "Captain, what if they're right? What if she's dangerous? We don't know anything about her." Ryan looked back at Asera, who stood quietly, her silver eyes watching him. "What's the truth?" he asked her. "Are you really the monster they say you are?" Asera took a deep breath, her voice soft but steady. "They tell you half the story. My people were powerful, yes. We could harness energy, manipulate minds, and shape the universe in ways others could not. But we used our gifts to protect our worlds, to bring balance. Until the Vorath Alliance decided we were a threat." She stepped closer, her glowing eyes locking onto Ryan's. "They called us monsters because they could not control us. They united the galaxy against us, spreading lies and fear. They wiped us out, not because we were dangerous, but because we knew the truth about them." "What truth?" Ryan asked. "That the Vorath Alliance does not protect the galaxy," Asera said, her voice tinged with bitterness. "They enslave it. They control it through fear and deception. My people uncovered their secrets, and for that, we were annihilated." The room fell silent, her words hanging heavily in the air. Malik shook his head. "This is insane. How are we supposed to know who's telling the truth? What if she's just manipulating us?" Ryan looked at Asera for a long moment, then back at his crew. "We've spent centuries being told what to believe by people who think they know better. I'm not about to let fear dictate my decisions. She's on our ship, and until she proves otherwise, she's under my protection." Kara groaned, throwing her hands in the air. "You're going to get us all killed, Captain." "Maybe," Ryan said with a wry smile. "But I'd rather die fighting for the truth than live as someone else's pawn." The ship shook violently as the enemy fleet began regrouping. Asera turned to Ryan, her voice calm but urgent. "They will not stop until I am destroyed. You have seen what they are capable of. Now you must decide, will you stand with me, or abandon me as so many others have?" Ryan squared his shoulders, meeting her gaze. "I don't abandon my crew. And right now, you're one of us." Asera's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then I will fight beside you." The bridge burst into action as the enemy fleet prepared for another attack. Ryan gripped the edge of his console, his voice steady as he gave the order. "Let's show them what humans are made of." Hunted. The stellar nomad darted through the void of space, weaving between asteroid fields and radiation clouds as the Vorath fleet pursued them. Enemy ships closed in from every angle, their weapons lighting up the darkness with bursts of red plasma. Inside the ship, tension ran high as alarms blared and the walls rattled from near-miss explosions. Shields down to 20%. Malik shouted from engineering. One more direct hit, and we're done for. Kara cursed under her breath as she frantically worked the controls. I can't shake them, Captain. They're cutting off every escape route. Ryan's knuckles were white as he gripped the console, scanning the tactical display. The Vorath ships were relentless, their formations tightening like a noose around his ship. Every decision felt like a gamble with their lives. Artemis, analyze their attack patterns. Ryan barked at the AI. Analyzing, the AI replied in its calm, measured tone. The enemy fleet is employing a pincer maneuver. Probability of evasion without external intervention, 2%. Ryan glanced at Asera, who stood quietly at the back of the bridge, her glowing veins dimmed and her expression unreadable. She seemed strangely calm despite the chaos around her. They won't stop, she said softly, her voice cutting through the noise. The Vorath Alliance fears me more than anything else in this galaxy. They will sacrifice their ships, their people, everything, to ensure I am erased. Ryan turned to her, his frustration evident. Then help us. You said you have power. Use it before we're all vaporized. Asera stepped forward, her silvery eyes meeting his. You ask for my power, but you do not understand the cost. If I unleash it fully, it may not stop at our enemies. Your crew, your ship, even you may not survive. Ryan hesitated, torn between his instinct to trust her and the reality of the danger she posed. Kara, overhearing the exchange, snapped, Are you serious, Captain? You're putting the lives of this crew in the hands of someone the entire galaxy calls a monster. Ryan shot her a sharp look. She's not the one firing at us. That's the Vorath Alliance. And if they're this desperate to destroy her, maybe it's because they're hiding something they don't want anyone to know. Asera's lips twitched into the faintest smile, though her eyes remained somber. You are braver than most, Captain Carter. But bravery alone will not save you. The ship jolted as a plasma bolt grazed the hull. Sparks flew from a nearby console, and Malik's voice crackled over the comms. We just lost power to the aft engines. We're sitting ducks out here. Ryan made his decision. Asera, whatever you have to do, do it now. She stepped to the center of the bridge, closing her eyes. Her glowing veins brightened, the light spreading across her body like molten silver. The air in the room grew heavy, and a faint hum began to resonate, vibrating through the walls of the ship. What's she doing? Kara whispered, her voice tinged with fear. Ryan didn't answer. He watched as Asera's power intensified, her presence filling the room with an almost overwhelming energy. The bridge lights flickered, and the hum became a deep, pulsing thrum that seemed to echo from every direction. Outside, the enemy fleet converged, their weapons charging for a final, devastating strike. Asera's eyes snapped open, glowing like twin stars. She raised her hands, and an invisible wave of force erupted from her. The stellar nomad shuddered, but the energy passed harmlessly through its hull. The same could not be said for the Vorath ships. On the view screen, the crew watched in stunned silence as the enemy vessels were hurled back as if struck by a colossal invisible hand. Several ships collided, their hulls crumpling under the impact. Others spun out of control, their engines sputtering and failing. But it wasn't just the physical damage. A strange ripple spread through space, distorting the stars. The Vorath ship systems short-circuited, their lights flickering and dimming. A faint, otherworldly hum seemed to emanate from the ships themselves, as though something far more profound than mechanical failure was happening. Then, silence. The Vorath fleet drifted, lifeless and powerless. Asera lowered her hands, her glowing veins dimming until they faded entirely. She swayed on her feet, her strength clearly drained. Ryan caught her before she could collapse. Easy, he said, his voice softer now. You did it. She looked up at him, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and sadness. It is not over. They will send more. They will never stop. Ryan helped her to a chair as Kara approached, still staring at the view screen in disbelief. What did she do? She saved us, Ryan said firmly. But at what cost? Kara muttered. Those ships, it's like they've been erased. Not destroyed, but hollowed out. Asera's voice, though weak, cut through the conversation. What you saw was only a fraction of my power. The Vorath Alliance fears me because they know what I am capable of. But even I fear what I might become if I lose control. Ryan crouched beside her, his tone steady and reassuring. You're not alone anymore, Asera. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. She looked at him for a long moment, her silver eyes reflecting something unreadable. I hope you are right, Captain. Because the true fight has only just begun. The crew silently returned to their stations, the weight of her words settling over them like a shroud. On the view screen, the lifeless Vorath fleet drifted in the cold void of space, a haunting reminder of the power Asera wielded, and the danger that came with it. The power within. The stellar nomad drifted through the darkness of space, the faint hum of its engines the only sound cutting through the heavy silence on the bridge. The aftermath of the battle with the Vorath fleet weighed on the crew. The damage to the ship was severe, and morale was even worse. For all of Ryan's determination to protect Asera, her power had left everyone shaken. Ryan stood at the viewport, staring out at the distant stars. The Vorath fleet's remains still floated in the void, ships gutted and lifeless, their once mighty presence reduced to an eerie graveyard. His mind replayed the moment Asera had unleashed her power. The way the ships had crumbled without a single explosion. The way the very fabric of space had seemed to warp. Captain, Kara's voice broke through his thoughts. We've repaired the engines enough for low-speed travel, but we're sitting ducks if the Vorath send another wave. Ryan turned to her, his expression grim. We'll deal with that when it happens. For now, get us to the nearest safe zone. We need time to regroup. What about her? Kara asked, her tone sharp. We can't just ignore what she did. Ryan glanced at Asera, who sat silently in the corner of the bridge, her silvery eyes downcast. She looked smaller now, drained of the power she'd wielded so effortlessly earlier. She saved our lives, Ryan said firmly. That's what matters. And if she destroys us next time? Kara retorted. You saw what she can do, Captain. How do we know we're not just another target waiting to happen? Before Ryan could respond, Asera spoke, her voice quiet but steady. You do not trust me. I understand why. Kara folded her arms, her glare unrelenting. You're right. I don't. And I don't think I'm the only one. Asera stood slowly, the glow in her veins faint but visible. She walked to the center of the bridge, her gaze meeting each crewmember's in turn. I did not ask for this power, she said. I did not ask to be the last of my kind. To be hunted across the stars for something I cannot change. But if I had not used my power today, none of us would still be alive. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Finally, Ryan stepped forward. That's enough, he said, his voice firm. We're all scared. And none of us knows what's going to happen next. But what I do know is that Asera isn't our enemy. If she wanted to hurt us, she could have done it 100 times over by now. Kara shook her head, frustration etched on her face. And what happens when the Vorath send more ships? Or worse, what happens when she loses control of that power? Ryan turned to Asera. That's a fair question. You said yourself that your power comes at a cost. What did you mean? Asera hesitated, her eyes flickering with something like pain. The power within me, it is not infinite. Each time I use it, it takes something from me. My strength, my memories, my very essence. And if I push too far, it could consume me completely. The revelation sent a ripple of unease through the crew. Malik, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. "So, you're like a living bomb. The more you go off, the closer you get to, what? Burning out?" "Or worse," Asera said. "If I lose control, the power could spread unchecked. It would not distinguish between friend and foe. It would destroy everything in its path." Ryan absorbed her words, his mind racing. The stakes were higher than he'd realized. Asera wasn't just a target, she was a weapon, and one that even she couldn't fully control. "Then we'll find a way to help you," Ryan said finally. Asera blinked, clearly surprised. "Help me?" "We'll figure out how to keep you safe, and keep that power of yours in check," Ryan said. "There's got to be someone, somewhere in this galaxy who can help you control it. Or at least understand it better." Asera shook her head. "You do not understand, Captain. No one will help me. The Vorath Alliance has poisoned the galaxy against me and my kind. To them, I am a monster, a remnant of a past they wish to erase. Anyone who aids me risks sharing my fate." Ryan's jaw tightened, but his resolve only grew stronger. "Then we'll find someone who isn't afraid of the Vorath. Someone who can see the truth." Kara scoffed. "And how exactly are we supposed to do that? The whole galaxy's against her, Captain. What makes you think we'll succeed where her entire species failed?" Ryan turned to her, his expression unwavering. "Because we're human. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's defying the odds." The bridge fell silent again, but this time it was a silence filled with something different, hope. Asera's lips curved into a faint smile, though her eyes still held a hint of sadness. "You are a strange species, Captain Carter. Perhaps that is why the galaxy fears you as well." Ryan chuckled softly. "Maybe. But they'll fear us even more when they see what we can do together." As the stellar nomad limped through space, the crew began to repair the ship and prepare for whatever came next. The Vorath Alliance wasn't finished with them, not by a long shot. But for the first time, Ryan felt like they had a fighting chance. And deep in her heart, Asera felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries, the faint flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't have to face her enemies alone anymore. Secrets of the Galaxy. The stellar nomad limped toward a desolate sector of space known as the Shadow Expanse, a region avoided by most travelers due to its uncharted anomalies. It was Asera who had suggested the destination, claiming it housed a hidden Nyxarian outpost that might hold the key to uncovering the Vorath Alliance's darkest secrets. The crew, still tense from recent events, worked in silence as the ship's systems sputtered under the strain of damage. The journey was slow, the weight of their mission hanging heavily on everyone's shoulders. "Shadow Expanse," Kara muttered as she studied the NAV charts. "Of all the places you could have picked, you had to choose the creepiest one in the galaxy." "It is the only place they will not follow us," Asera replied from her seat at the back of the bridge. Her voice was calm but carried an undercurrent of urgency. "They fear what lies there. And we're just supposed to walk right into it?" Malik asked from engineering. "What exactly are we looking for, anyway?" "A truth they have buried," Asera said, her glowing silver eyes meeting his. "A truth that could shatter the galaxy's trust in the Vorath Alliance." Ryan leaned forward, his elbows resting on the command console. "You said your people discovered something about the Vorath. Something that led to your extinction. What was it?" Asera hesitated, her gaze distant. "My people were scholars, explorers of the unseen. We uncovered evidence that the Vorath Alliance was not formed to protect the galaxy, but to control it. They use fear, manipulation, and deception to maintain their power. Entire wars have been orchestrated by them, false enemies created to justify their dominance." Kara frowned, her skepticism evident. "That's a pretty big accusation. Got anything to back it up?" Asera's expression hardened. "At the Nyxarian outpost, there are records. Files containing proof of their lies, their experiments, their betrayals. It is why they destroyed us. They could not risk the truth spreading. Ryan nodded, his resolve firm. Then that's where we're going. If there's even a chance we can expose them, we have to try. The ship shuddered as it passed into the shadow expanse. The stars outside seemed to dim, swallowed by an unnatural darkness that made space itself feel alive. Strange energy readings flickered across the sensors, and the crew felt an unexplainable unease settle over them. "This place gives me the creeps," Malik muttered, his fingers flying across the controls to stabilize the ship. "You are not alone in that, Artemis," the ship's AI chimed in. "The shadow expanse contains multiple gravitational anomalies and energy fields inconsistent with known physics. Proceed with caution." "Noted," Ryan said, his eyes scanning the view screen. "Asera, how much farther?" "Not far," she replied. "The outpost is hidden within an asteroid cluster. It will not appear on your sensors." Kara sighed. "Great. Invisible rocks in a haunted part of space. What could possibly go wrong?" Moments later, a faint glow appeared in the distance, emanating from a cluster of jagged asteroids. Asera stood, her voice steady. "There. That is where we must go." As they approached, the glow resolved into a massive structure carved into the largest asteroid. The design was unmistakably alien, with intricate patterns and spires that seemed to defy gravity. The entire outpost pulsed faintly, like a living heartbeat. Ryan couldn't help but marvel at the sight. "Your people built this?" "Yes," Asera said softly, a hint of pride in her voice. "It was one of our last refuges before the Vorath found us." The ship docked at the outpost's entrance, and the crew suited up, tension thick in the air. As they stepped into the ancient structure, the temperature dropped, and the walls seemed to hum faintly, as if the outpost itself was aware of their presence. "This place is incredible," Malik whispered, his voice echoing in the cavernous halls. "It is also dangerous," Asera warned. "The defenses may still be active. Stay close." As they moved deeper into the outpost, they reached a massive chamber filled with glowing orbs suspended in midair. Symbols and images flickered across their surfaces, too alien for the crew to understand. Asera stepped forward, her veins glowing faintly as she touched one of the orbs. The room came alive, holograms projecting maps, documents, and recordings in rapid succession. The crew watched in awe and horror as the truth unfolded before them. Recordings of Vorath officials orchestrating galactic conflicts to consolidate their power. Evidence of genetic experiments on lesser species to create obedient soldiers. Communications detailing alliances formed and broken for political gain. And finally, footage of Nyxarian worlds burning as the Vorath unleashed weapons of mass destruction to ensure their silence. Kara's face went pale. This is insane. If this gets out, it'll tear the galaxy apart." "That is why they have hunted me," Asera said, her voice heavy with sorrow. "I carry the burden of my people's truth. And now, so do you." Before anyone could respond, Artemis interrupted. "Captain, multiple ships have entered the shadow expanse. The Vorath fleet is closing in." Ryan's heart sank. "How much time do we have?" 5 minutes at most, the AI replied. "We can't fight them like this," Malik said. "Not with the ship in pieces." Ryan turned to Asera. "Can we download these files and get out of here?" Asera hesitated. "The data is vast. Transferring it will take time we do not have." "Then we hold them off," Ryan said. "We've come too far to turn back now. Kara, Malik, get back to the ship and prepare for launch. Asera and I will finish the transfer." Kara hesitated, then nodded. "Don't take too long." As the crew rushed to prepare, Ryan and Asera worked to extract the files, the clock ticking down with every passing second. The distant hum of the Vorath fleet grew louder, a reminder that their fight was far from over. The final stand. The glow of the Nyxarian outpost pulsed faintly as the stellar nomad prepared for what might be its last stand. The Vorath fleet loomed closer, their dark, angular ships cutting through the unnatural shadows of the expanse like predators closing in on wounded prey. The crew worked feverishly to finish downloading the files, every second feeling like an eternity. "Captain, we're at 70%, Asera said, her silver eyes focused on the swirling holograms in front of her. "We need a few more minutes." "We don't have a few minutes," Malik's voice crackled over the comms. "The Vorath ships are locking weapons on us. We're not going to survive a direct hit." Ryan gripped the edge of the console, his mind racing. "Kara, bring the ship's weapons online and prepare for evasive maneuvers. We'll hold them off as long as we can." "That's suicide, Captain," Kara replied. "We're barely holding together as it is." "We've got no choice," Ryan shot back. "If we don't get this data out of here, everything we've fought for means nothing." The ship shook violently as the Vorath fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through the darkness, exploding against the outpost's ancient defenses. The stellar nomad launched counterattacks, its cannons firing in rapid bursts, but it was a desperate effort against overwhelming odds. Inside the outpost, Asera's glowing veins brightened as she focused her energy. The holograms flickered and spun faster, the data transfer nearing completion. "Almost there," she whispered. Ryan stood beside her, his eyes scanning the readouts. "We don't have much time. Can you do anything to slow them down?" Asera hesitated. "If I use my power again, I cannot guarantee your safety." Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice steady. "We trust you, Asera. Do what you have to do." She nodded, stepping forward into the center of the chamber. The air around her grew heavy, and the faint hum of the outpost became a deep, resonant thrum. Asera closed her eyes, her glowing veins flaring brighter until they illuminated the entire room. Outside, the Vorath fleet suddenly faltered. Ships veered off course, their engines sputtering as invisible waves of energy rippled through space. The crew of the stellar nomad watched in awe as the enemy ship's weapon systems failed, their lights flickering and dimming. "She's doing it," Kara breathed. But Asera's power came at a cost. Inside the chamber, her body trembled, her glowing veins pulsing erratically. Ryan rushed to her side, catching her as she staggered. "Asera," he said urgently. "Are you okay?" She opened her eyes, her voice faint. "The transfer is complete. You must go now." "What about you?" Ryan asked. "I will stay," she said, her tone resolute. "I can hold them here, but only if I remain behind." "No," Ryan said firmly. "I'm not leaving you." "You must," Asera insisted. "The galaxy needs the truth more than it needs me." "Go, Captain. Before it's too late." Ryan hesitated, torn between his loyalty to her and his responsibility to his crew. The ship's comm crackled with Malik's urgent voice. "Captain, we can't hold out much longer. We need to leave now." Ryan clenched his fists, then made his decision. "We'll come back for you," he promised. Asera managed a faint smile. "I believe you will." Ryan sprinted back to the ship, the chamber shaking as the outpost's ancient defenses began to fail. The stellar nomad roared to life, its engines straining as it pulled away from the asteroid. Asera stood in the heart of the outpost, her glowing veins burning like fire as she unleashed one final surge of power. Outside, the Vorath fleet was consumed by a blinding wave of energy. Ships imploded, their hulls crumpling as the energy tore through them. The stellar nomad barely escaped the blast radius, its shields flickering under the strain. As the crew watched the destruction unfold on the view screen, silence fell over the bridge. Kara finally spoke, her voice shaking. Did she make it?" Ryan stared at the debris field, his jaw tight. We'll find out. But first, we've got a galaxy to wake up. He turned to Malik. How long to process the data? Not long, Malik replied. Once we transmit it, the whole galaxy will know what the Vorath Alliance has been hiding. Ryan nodded, his resolve firm. Then let's get to work. As the stellar nomad disappeared into the depths of space, carrying the truth that could change the galaxy forever, a faint pulse of light flickered from the ruins of the Nyxarian outpost, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of the universe, hope could still burn bright.